Hey guys, it's Shelby, and today we're going to talk about some more things that you thought were eco-friendly that maybe are not so much. I already did one video like this. It seems that a lot of my videos turn into series, so I'll link the part 1 up here in this corner and down below if you want to check it out. But basically, this video is not to say definitively this is sustainable or this is not. Really, we're going to be talking about the gray areas of saying or just outright thinking that something is sustainable because it's natural, it's biodegradable, all that kind of thing, and explaining maybe just some parts of it that maybe you didn't think about before. I am very excited for today's video, so I don't want to waste too much more time on the intro, except to say thank you to Squarespace for partnering with me on this video and for being such a wonderful partner to me over the years. If you're interested in building a website, online store, or even if you just need a domain, there's a link at the top of the description to give you a little discount. So first up is kind of a marketing tactic that may have gotten to you before that you thought meant this company was sustainable or doing good things, etc. When in actuality, it could just be a marketing ploy. This is when a brand sets a goal to do XYZ sustainable thing in 10 years, in 20 years. Right now, I'm seeing some goals set out for 2050. Newsflash, that's literally 30 years from now. Okay, 29, not literally, you know what I mean. And what's so interesting is the goals that are set like way the fuck out there, like 30 years from now, are from companies that are giant and have plenty of money to do the more sustainable thing right now. Sorry, not right now. I don't live in the clouds where I think they can snap their fingers and be better, but they could certainly get there within the next 5 years, not the next 30. I think for obvious reasons, when a company says we're going to be net zero carbon emissions by 10 years from now, or we're going to be zero waste by 10 years from now, or we're going to be using all recycled materials by 10, 20, 30 years from now, it makes you think that this brand is doing something sustainable and that if you support them, they're on the right track in being a more sustainable brand that we can trust. But the reason I say this is not so eco-friendly, why we shouldn't trust it, is because a lot of these goals are set without a plan. They tell you they're gonna do this thing without telling us how or what that looks like or what they've already done to put that plan into motion. And the goals that are set for 10, 20, 30 years into the future, likelihood is the people who set those goals, those people aren't gonna be there by the time those years roll around. There's no one to hold accountable to actually doing that thing. And a lot of times, what I've seen, paying attention to brands that set these markers before 2021, that had markers to do something by 2021, is they get all this marketing and this hype and this trust between you and me that they're going to do something, but that promise gets pushed to the back of our minds and we forget to hold them accountable, and they don't hold themselves accountable, and they didn't set out a plan to make it to where they wanted to be or said they would be. And here we are in 2021 and they didn't accomplish any of those goals, but they got all of the brownie points for saying that they would. The difference here between a brand saying they're going to do something and actually doing it, and a brand that says something and doesn't actually do it, most of the time is having a plan or shorter goals up until the ultimate goal, right? We're gonna replace this, we're gonna do this thing, we're gonna implement this technology, etc. Instead of literally just laying out a goal with no intention or proof or plan of how they're going to get there. And maybe sometimes these brands do have a plan, they're just not publishing it, which is not the best thing for transparency's sake, because transparency helps the consumer make an informed decision on if you deserve our money or not. Something you can do to tell the difference between the brand who's just saying it and the brand who's actually doing it is to ask them what they're doing, what they're implementing, if they can share some more information with you. And also to periodically ask them, hey, have you made any progress on this goal? What's the status update? As if you're their boss, because you kind of are. You pay them. So yeah, thought that was a fun one to kick this off with. This one is an action that I did when I was probably in high school, before I realized that my thought process on this was flawed, and that's fine. We all learn things at different times, right? We can only do better when we know better. Or is it when we know better, we do better? You know what I mean. So let me know in the comments if you and baby environmentalist Shelby were on the same page. But I used to think that it was okay to send biodegradable or compostable materials to landfill because they would break down, because it's just food, right? It's just paper, right? No, very wrong. So for those of us who compost, we know that things that are compostable do require specific conditions to break down. 2 of those things that it cannot get in the well, really 3 of those things it ain't getting in the landfill is sunlight. After you bury food with a bunch of waste, sunlight ain't getting to it. Water, which again, under a bunch of shit, not getting any water. And number 3, oxygen. And also it needs like the right balance a lot of times of carbon to organics to break down into something that's actually usable soil. Those things do not happen in a landfill. And so when we send biodegradable or compostable materials to landfill, they're basically preserved with all of the non-biodegradable compostable material that surrounds it. That apple sitting at the bottom of the landfill surrounded by plastic, a lot of times will sit there for years without even changing very much. They've pulled some crazy things out of landfills. And the other caveat to this is when food breaks down properly, it turns back into soil compost. That's why if your food is breaking down properly in your compost, it's not gonna smell. I mean, it will smell like compost, but it's not gonna stink and be unbearably stinky if you're doing your compost correctly. The problem with putting food into landfills is it's breaking down improperly, and if given the right opportunity, emits methane and actually does have a significant proportion of emissions, methane from landfills, that contributes to climate change. The fact that we are extracting all these nutrients from our land, right? When we grow food, it takes water inputs and it takes nutrients from the soil to grow this apple, and right now what we're doing is taking from the soil, eating this apple. Let's just call it an apple core. You're throwing away the apple core, okay? Right now we're extracting these things, taking that apple core and putting it into the landfill, and that is a linear system. Take, throw away, take, throw away. The natural system would be to send it back to the soil. That would be considered a circular economy, and right now we don't have that. And so our soils that we so desperately rely on to feed the growing population are not getting the appropriate nutrients that we need. We are depleting our soils of nutrients, and it causes all sorts of problems. That's a huge soil health is a big topic. We cannot sustain taking stuff from our environment and putting it in a hole in the ground forever. We cannot sustain that. So please, whatever you have to do to stop sending food to landfill, I beg of you, please do it. Now this next one, I know I'm going to get a little bit ranty because this makes me so frustrated. You might have seen a recent article that came out by The Telegraph talking about how houseplants are destroying the environment. I have a lot to say here. So something that you might have thought of as eco-friendly or sustainable because it's natural before are houseplants. And it's no secret that I have a lot of houseplants. It's been a dream of mine for so many years to have the houseplants that I do and to be surrounded by greenery all the time. And my literal dreams have come true in this house. I'm trying to think of the order I want to say these things in let's start here. So I practice something called eco-minimalism. It's a lifestyle, tactic, philosophy, whatever you want to call it, way of living that I came up with, which is to implement basically the fact that everything we buy has a massive resource footprint. The philosophy of eco-minimalism is to buy as few things as you can new in order to not create a demand for that linear economy to be able to keep going in the unsustainable way that we are doing it now. And that's what I live by. I don't buy things unless I've really, really thought through them, unless I've decided that I absolutely need them, unless I can assure that it's going to bring value to my life. And when things don't, I don't buy them. I do this because I know that not every single product we buy has a supply chain footprint, right? I don't know the supply chain footprint of my rug because I can't assess all of the materials that went into it and how it was mined and where they were grown and the inputs it took to grow that thing. So I bought my rug secondhand. You can point to absolutely anything in your home, and chances are you don't know what all went into growing said thing. And I'm so sick of people picking and choosing these individual items to start talking about the resource footprint of them. And I'm even more sick of people using that against people who are already doing everything that they can. I wanted to put houseplants in here because there is an issue with peat bogs, and I've known about this for years. So I don't buy any soils or compost or things like that that have peat in them, because it is a resource that you have to extract from the ground. It takes millions of years to create that resource, and also there's all kinds of issues with greenhouse gases surrounding it, etc. You can actually read this article, I'll link it below. The reason I'm bringing this up is because so many people have tagged me asking, since I have so many houseplants, what do I think about the resource footprint of said houseplants? And I think the truth is that if you knew how many resources go into every single thing we buy, then people would be outraged about all of it, which is why I live this lifestyle called eco-minimalism. And do you know the things that I've literally bought to decorate this house are either all secondhand or they're living plants. Living plants that have brought a lot of value to my life. Therefore, I remove myself from consumerism in every other way possible, and I don't feel guilty about the thing that brings me joy and its resource footprint, because everything we buy has a resource footprint. We just don't see it, and it's not given its own article to make people feel bad for buying houseplants during the most unprecedented times many of us will ever face. The houseplant industry boomed as everyone was sitting at home in their houses, scared of uncertainty and being, quite frankly, all of us an even level of anxiety and depression. And for a media company to come out and focus on consumer responsibility as far as houseplants go, and making us feel bad for doing that sort of thing during this crazy time, instead of focusing on how many of those resources go into our completely unsustainable agriculture system, it doesn't sit right with me. And so since so many people have been asking me about it, I just thought I would give my complete, open, and honest opinion on, are houseplants the most sustainable or eco-friendly thing? No, they have a resource footprint just like literally every single thing you buy. There just might not be an entire article written about the other things that you're buying right now. So as always, I encourage you to think through every single purchase you make, determine if you need it or if you don't, and if the one thing that you choose to buy are houseplants, you don't get to feel bad about that, because our agriculture system is where change needs to happen, not between that fucking snake plant you bought because it actually brings you joy every single day when you look at it. It's honestly the perfect embodiment of my lifestyle and how it works, and why I feel that you can pick and choose things that bring you value that you will cherish and make last long term. I've learned the intricacies of all of my plants and kept almost all of them alive for years now. And so I encourage you to do the same. Not to buy into trends just because they're cool. Not to go and buy a bunch of houseplants if you didn't look into how to keep them alive first. Because then chances are the resources that went into growing that thing are being wasted because you didn't do your due diligence. So maybe something you thought was eco-friendly that now you're realizing has a resource footprint, like nearly everything we buy. I hope you enjoyed getting to see ranty Shelbi. She comes out every now and then when people try to shame me, who's doing as literally as much as I can, who wastes energy on me instead of the politicians and businesses not doing their part. I'm doing my part, okay? Don't come for me. But I enjoyed this video. I have a list of some other things that I want to add to this series. So if you want to see another video in this series, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you're new here. And leave me a comment about something that you once thought was eco-friendly, but then you kind of realized maybe not so much. And I might include it in my next episode in this series. But I want to say another huge thank you to Squarespace for partnering with me on this video. So let's talk a little bit more about them. Like I said, Squarespace is an all-in-one platform, so you can look to them to build an online store, website, or even just if you need to purchase a domain. Squarespace makes setting up a website super easy because you don't need to learn coding. They already have some beautiful templates over there that you can customize to be exactly what you're looking for. Squarespace makes it easy to connect your social media and to also take advantage of their blogging tools. You can do email campaigns through Squarespace because it is an all-in-one platform, like I mentioned. With their 24-hour customer service and traffic insight tools, it makes it the easiest way to build a website on the internet today. So when you're ready to launch, head over to squarespace.com/Shelbizleee for 10% off of your first purchase.